Captain Emily Matthews stood at the viewport of the Steel Dawn, her weathered cargo freighter, watching the strange geometric patterns of the alien vessels shimmer against the backdrop of distant stars. The ships of the Meridian Collective looked like abstract art pieces, all smooth curves and crystalline surfaces that seemed to defy conventional engineering. Their beauty made them no less threatening. "Status report," she called out, keeping her voice steady despite the growing knot in her stomach. The bridge crew of the Steel Dawn might be civilian cargo haulers, but they were still trained professionals. 3 vessels, Captain. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper responded from his sensor station, his fingers dancing across the holographic display. Configuration unknown, but energy readings suggest they're military. They're arranging themselves in a containment pattern. Emily nodded, her mind racing through options. The Steel Dawn was officially classified as a heavy mining and cargo transport, but like all human vessels that ventured into deep space, she carried more than a few surprises under her thick hull plating. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Jessica Torres cut in. "They're hailing us. Text only, using standard galactic trade protocols." "Put it up." The message that appeared on the main screen was terse. "Unidentified vessel. You have entered Meridian Collective space. Prepare for boarding and inspection. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." Emily allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had been preparing for this moment for centuries, ever since they'd first looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. The Steel Dawn might look like a simple cargo hauler, but she was built with the assumption that humanity's first contact might not be peaceful. "Send no response," she ordered. "Mr. Cooper, initiate defense pattern Delta. Miss Torres, get our guests in engineering ready. Mr. Henderson, begin warming up our mining charges." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, while the collective ships approached, likely expecting an easy inspection of a primitive species vessel. The Steel Dawn's hidden systems came online. The first alien shuttle approached their starboard airlock, its crystalline surface gleaming. Emily watched through internal cameras as the boarding party, tall, elegant beings in environmental suits, began cutting through the outer door. "Let them through the first airlock," she commanded. "But seal all interior compartments. Once they're in the containment zone, execute." The alien boarding party breached the outer door, their sophisticated cutting tools making short work of what they assumed was primitive human engineering. They didn't realize that the Steel Dawn's actual hull security began several layers deeper. As the last of the 12-member boarding party entered the containment zone, Emily gave the signal. Now, the mining charges, actually highly sophisticated proximity weapons designed to look like industrial equipment, activated. Simultaneously, hidden defense turrets emerged from what appeared to be cargo panels. The aliens found themselves caught in a carefully designed kill box. "Ma'am," Cooper called out, "their motherships are powering up weapons." "Execute Phase 2, Emily ordered. "Show them why you don't corner a human vessel." The Steel Dawn's outer hull, designed to appear utilitarian and crude, suddenly shed its facade. Panels shifted, revealing state-of-the-art point defense systems. The ship's emergency thrusters, actually military-grade maneuver drives, roared to life. As the alien vessels opened fire, their energy weapons splashed harmlessly against shields that shouldn't have existed on a cargo vessel. The Steel Dawn's response was immediate and devastating. Precision-guided mining charges, designed to crack asteroids but equally effective against warships, streaked through space. Direct hits on all 3 vessels, Cooper reported, unable to keep the pride from his voice. Their shields weren't even at full power. They didn't think they needed them. Emily watched as the collective ships, their elegant forms now marred by explosive damage, attempted to regroup. Their communications turned frantic, no longer the confident demands of superior beings, but the panicked transmissions of a force encountering something they never expected. "Send a message to Earth Command," Emily ordered as the alien ships began to retreat. First contact achieved. Hostile intent confirmed. The Meridian Collective just learned why even human cargo ships come with teeth. As she watched the alien vessels limp away, Emily knew this was just the beginning. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment, building their ships with hidden strength, training their crews for the unexpected. The collective had just learned a crucial lesson. In space, nothing was more dangerous than underestimating humanity's capacity for survival. Admiral James Walker stood in the command center of Lunar Base Overlook, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of the Steel Dawn's encounter. Around him, the assembled Admiralty watched in silence as Captain Matthews' cargo ship demonstrated exactly why humanity had spent the last 2 centuries paranoid about first contact. "Gentlemen," Walker said, pausing the footage at the moment the alien ships began their retreat, "this is what we've been preparing for since we first reached Mars. The Meridian Collective just gave us exactly the excuse we needed." Fleet Admiral Harrison leaned forward, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on the damage assessments. "The 7th Fleet is ready." "Has been for the past decade," Walker replied, gesturing to another display showing hundreds of ships scattered across the Sol system, hidden in plain sight. Every vessel classified as a system defense boat or deep space patrol craft is actually a fully equipped warship. The collective thinks they just bullied a primitive species cargo hauler. They have no idea they provoked the largest military force in this sector of space. The room's atmosphere shifted as Walker brought up the fleet deployment plans. Ships designated as scientific vessels, mining platforms, and orbital maintenance stations began showing their true classifications: destroyers, cruisers, and battleships. "Operation Sleeping Giant is now in effect," Walker announced, his voice carrying the weight of decades of preparation. "All ships will shed their civilian configurations within the next 12 hours. I want the 7th Fleet assembled at Jump Point Sigma before the collective realizes what they've started." Commander Sarah Reynolds, head of Strategic Intelligence, stepped forward. "Based on the Steel Dawn's sensor data, the collective's technology appears advanced, but their tactical doctrine is predictable. They rely heavily on shield strength and energy weapons, leaving them vulnerable to our kinetic weapon systems." "Exactly," Walker nodded, pulling up the specs for the fleet's primary battle group. "Our ships were built knowing we might face enemies with superior technology. That's why every vessel in the fleet carries what we lovingly call the Murphy Protocol, systems designed to continue fighting long after they should have been destroyed." The holographic display shifted to show the pride of the 7th Fleet, the Relentless, officially registered as a long-range stellar cartography vessel. As they watched, its outer hull panels retracted, revealing layers of point defense systems, missile pods, and rail gun batteries that would make any military vessel proud. "The collective believes they encountered a primitive species with surprisingly good defenses," Walker continued, a grim smile playing across his face. "What they actually found was the tip of a spear that humanity has been sharpening since we first looked to the stars and asked ourselves, what if they're not friendly?" Admiral Chen's voice cut through the moment of contemplation. "The civilian population. Already implementing Protocol Dark Winter," Walker responded. "Every colony world, every space station, every mining outpost. They're all activating their military components as we speak. The collective thinks they can intimidate a species that's new to space travel. They're about to learn they've attacked a civilization that turned paranoia into an art form." The room's main display showed real-time updates as ships across human space began their transformations. Orbital platforms revealed hidden weapon systems. Research stations deployed military-grade shields. Mining outposts activated defense grids that had been disguised as atmospheric processors. "Send word to Captain Matthews," Walker ordered. "The Steel Dawn is to rendezvous with the fleet at Point Sigma. Her crew just earned their combat pay. And send a message to our listening posts. I want to know the moment the collective realizes what they've done." As the Admiralty filed out to implement their various responsibilities, Walker remained, watching the dots of light that represented humanity's hidden strength coming to life across the galaxy map. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment, building their ships with hidden strength, training their crews for the unexpected, all while maintaining the facade of a young, inexperienced spacefaring race. "Sound general quarters across the fleet," he commanded. "It's time to show the galaxy why humans build their ships to survive the impossible." The collective wanted to find out what humanity was capable of. Let's not keep them waiting. Lieutenant Commander Michael Rodriguez watched the neutron star's corona writhe like a living thing through the reinforced viewport of his destroyer, the Shadow Runner. Most species considered this region of space completely uninhabitable, which made it perfect for an ambush. "Status on the collective fleet?" he asked, his voice steady despite the crushing gravitational forces that threatened to tear his ship apart. The Shadow Runner's inertial dampeners whined in protest, but held firm. 5 minutes out, sir," Lieutenant Emma Foster reported from her tactical station. 3 heavy cruisers, 8 destroyers, and what appears to be their new command ship. They're following the exact patrol route our intel predicted. Rodriguez nodded, glancing at the tactical display showing his own forces. 4 stealth destroyers, hidden in the lethal radiation of the neutron star's corona. The collective had dismissed early reports about human ships operating in such conditions as impossible. They were about to learn otherwise. "All ships, this is Shadow Actual," he transmitted to his wolf pack. "Remember your training. Humanity's been practicing naval warfare since we first put boats in water. These aliens might have better technology, but we have thousands of years of combat experience. Execute pattern thermopylae on my mark." The collective fleet approached with the arrogant confidence of a force that believed itself technologically superior. Their sensors, advanced as they were, struggled to penetrate the intense radiation surrounding the neutron star. They never saw the trap until it was too late. Mark. The 4 human destroyers erupted from the corona like ancient sea creatures breaching the waves. Their hulls glowed red-hot from the intense radiation, but their systems remained operational thanks to redundancies that alien engineers had dismissed as wastefully excessive. "Weapons free," Rodriguez ordered as his ships entered attack range. "Show them why you don't follow predictable patterns in a war zone." The Shadow Runner's main guns opened up, launching salvos of magnetically accelerated rounds at velocities that turned simple metal slugs into weapons of mass destruction. The collective ships, their shields optimized for energy weapons, found their defenses surprisingly vulnerable to such primitive kinetic attacks. "First blood," Foster called out. "Direct hits on their lead cruiser. Their shields are failing to compensate for the radiation interference." The battle quickly devolved into chaos, exactly as Rodriguez had planned. His ships executed maneuvers that seemed suicidal to the alien commanders, diving through radiation fields that should have fried their systems, using the neutron star's gravity to slingshot around at impossible angles. "Shadow 2, break right, and execute attack pattern Delta," Rodriguez commanded as a collective destroyer tried to target his squadron mate. "Shadow 3 and 4, converge on their command ship. Let's show them why predictability kills in combat." The human ships moved like a well-choreographed dance team, each maneuver building off centuries of naval warfare doctrine. While the collective ships maintained rigid formations and textbook approaches, Rodriguez's Wolfpack adapted and flowed like water, turning the battlefield's hazards into tactical advantages. "Sir," Foster's voice cut through the command chatter. "Their command ship is attempting to coordinate a counterattack. They're launching fighters." Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Spring the trap. Execute Operation Fishing Net." Hidden within the debris field they created during the initial engagement, dozens of autonomous drone platforms suddenly activated. The collected fighters found themselves caught in a web of point defense fire and electromagnetic pulses, their sophisticated systems scrambled by weapons designed to look like floating wreckage. "Multiple enemy ships disabled," Foster reported, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. "Their command and control structure is falling apart." The battle reached its crescendo as the Shadow Runner executed a maneuver that would have been considered certifiably insane by any other species, using the neutron star's gravity well to accelerate to relativistic velocities before firing its main guns. The kinetic energy of the rounds, multiplied by their near-light speed, turned them into weapons that no shield system could fully deflect. All ships pushed the advantage, Rodriguez ordered as he watched the collective fleet begin to break apart. Show them why humanity never stopped preparing for war among the stars. As the surviving alien vessels fled the battlefield, leaving their crippled companions behind, Rodriguez allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The collective had just learned a harsh lesson about human combat doctrine. Sometimes the most dangerous predators were the ones who looked technologically inferior, but had centuries of combat experience to draw upon. Commander Jessica Barnes crawled through the smoke-filled maintenance tunnel of the U.S. Thermopylae, her face illuminated by emergency lighting. Above her, the ship's hull groaned from structural damage that would have torn any collective vessel in half. The aliens had celebrated when they landed their killing blow, only to watch in horror as the supposedly crippled human cruiser continued fighting at full combat effectiveness. Status report, she called into her comm unit, pulling herself toward the auxiliary bridge. The main bridge had been destroyed 10 minutes ago, but like everything else on human warships, they had backups for their backups. Engineering reporting. Chief Amanda Sullivan's voice crackled through. We've lost decks 5 through 8, but tertiary power systems are online. Reactor containment is holding at 300% of alien maximum tolerances. Barnes allowed herself a grim smile. The collective's engineers had declared human containment standards ridiculously overbuilt. Now they were learning why humanity insisted on such redundancy. Weapons, Barnes asked, reaching the auxiliary bridge and strapping into the command chair. The holographic displays flickered to life, showing the battlefield around them. Main guns are offline. Lieutenant Paul Richards reported from his station, switching to secondary battery. Missile tubes 3 through 12 are still operational. Point defense grid is at 60% capacity through distributed networking. The Thermopylae shuddered as another volley of alien fire struck their position. Outside the viewports, 3 collective cruisers circled what they thought was a dying vessel, their crystalline hulls gleaming with power. They still think we're finished, Barnes observed, watching their attack pattern. Time to show them why humans always plan for worst-case scenarios. Execute Protocol Lazarus. Throughout the ship, systems that had appeared destroyed came back online. What the collective didn't understand was that human vessels were designed with deliberate gaps in their sensor profiles, places where systems could appear destroyed while remaining fully operational. Man. Communications Officer Lisa Chen called out, "We're picking up collective transmissions. They're trying to figure out how we're still fighting. Their combat doctrine has no protocols for engaging ships that can operate at this damage level. Let's give them something else to think about," Barnes ordered. "All batteries. Execute firing pattern Delta 6. Show them what a dead human ship can do." The Thermopylae's response was devastating. Hidden weapon ports opened along supposedly destroyed sections of hull. Emergency thrusters, designed to operate even if 90% of the ship lost power, pushed the cruiser into an attack position that should have been impossible with their level of damage. Multiple hits confirmed, Richards reported with satisfaction. Their shields weren't prepared for attacks from vectors they thought were destroyed. 2 enemy cruisers reporting critical damage. Barnes watched as the collective vessels broke formation, their confidence shattered by a ship that refused to die. The Thermopylae's design philosophy, shaped by centuries of human warfare, meant that losing 60% of their hull wasn't a death sentence. It was just an invitation to get creative. Engineering to bridge. Sullivan's voice came through again. "You're not going to believe this, but the structural damage is actually improving our heat dissipation. We can push the reactors another 20%. The humans are mad," came a broken transmission from one of the collective ships, broadcast in the clear as their encryption failed. Their vessel should not be functional. This defies all known engineering principles. "Send them a message," Barnes commanded, allowing herself a predatory grin. Tell them this is what happens when you build ships assuming everything that can go wrong will go wrong. Humanity learned long ago that the only way to guarantee survival is to plan for failure at every level. The Thermopylae surged forward, its hull blazing with escaping plasma and radiation that would have crippled any other species' vessels. But where alien ships were built to operate at peak efficiency, human ships were built to operate at any efficiency. All hands, Barnes broadcast throughout her wounded but unbowed vessel, prepare for close-range engagement. Let's show the collective why they call us the Ghost Fleet. Because human ships don't die easily. And we're about to haunt their nightmares. Major William Iron Bill Thompson watched through his helmet display as his Marine strike team prepared to breach the hull of the collective flagship Eternal Radiance. The massive vessel's crystal lattice armor glowed with internal energy, but that same transparent structure had revealed exactly where his teams needed to strike. Remember your training, he broadcast to the 100 Marines spread across 5 boarding craft. Every move we make today comes from 2,000 years of human warfare. From the Roman testudo to modern CQB, we're about to show these aliens why humanity's combat doctrine never stops evolving. The boarding craft latched onto the alien hull like mechanical leeches, their plasma cutters beginning to burn through. Thompson's HUD displayed the centuries-old breaching techniques they'd adapted for space warfare, perfected through countless urban combat scenarios on Earth. Breaching teams, execute Formation Charlie, Thompson ordered as the first holes appeared in the alien ship's hull. Just like clearing the tunnels under New Damascus, they think their internal security is perfect. Show them what humanity learned in the Age of Castles. The Marines moved in seamless coordination, their formations echoing ancient shield walls as they secured their entry points. Collective internal security responded exactly as predicted, rushing to meet the threat head-on with superior numbers and advanced energy weapons. They're using standard containment protocols. Lieutenant Sarah Martinez reported from her position with 2nd Squad. Just like the simulation showed, they've never adapted to deal with asymmetric warfare. Thompson smiled grimly as he watched the alien security forces mass at the end of a long corridor, their energy shields forming an impressive but predictable barrier. Execute Agincourt Protocol. His Marines responded with practiced precision. While the aliens expected a direct confrontation, the human forces split into smaller units, using maintenance ducts and service corridors that the collective had never considered viable combat zones. It was a lesson humanity had learned in countless urban battles. Control the spaces between the obvious paths. Sir, Private First Class James Chen called out. They're trying to seal bulkheads and vent atmospheres in selected sections. Standard response. Thompson replied calmly. Execute Countermeasure Echo 7. Show them why humans train for every environment. The Marines' armor, appearing bulky and primitive compared to the sleek collective combat suits, revealed their true sophistication. Magnetic grapples deployed automatically, anchoring them against the vacuum. Backup oxygen systems engaged seamlessly. What looked like decorative armor panels reconfigured into radiation shields. Engineering deck secured, Martins reported. The aliens are falling back to predetermined defensive positions. They're fighting by their tactical manual instead of adapting to the situation. Thompson led his team through a series of coordinated advances that would have made ancient generals proud. Where the collective expected straight attacks down main corridors, the humans moved like water, flowing through every available space, emerging from unexpected angles. They're transmitting tactical data back to their command, Chen announced, his sensor suite picking up the alien communications. They're trying to understand why our attacks don't follow any pattern they recognize. That's because we're using patterns that predate spaceflight, Thompson responded, watching as his forces systematically dismantle the alien defense grid. Show them what we learned from the siege of Constantinople. The Marines deployed sonic disruptors that shattered the crystal architecture the collective relied on. They used coordinated EMP bursts that turned the aliens' advanced systems against them. Each tactic was a lesson learned in Earth's long history of warfare, adapted for space combat. Bridge section in sight, Martins reported. They've concentrated their remaining forces there. Standard defensive formation. Thompson nodded inside his helmet. All units, prepare to execute Battle of Cannon Maneuver, space warfare variant. Let's show them how Hannibal would have fought in zero gravity. The Marines moved with practiced precision, their formation shifting like a living thing. The collective commanders watched in growing horror as their superior position was slowly but inexorably outmaneuvered by tactics that had been perfected centuries before humanity reached the stars. Remember, Thompson broadcast as his forces prepared for the final push. Every move we make today carries the weight of human military history. From ancient Rome to modern space warfare, we're about to demonstrate why human combat doctrine is now the standard that makes alien strategists wake up in cold sweats. Captain Alexandra Flash Carter watched the massive form of the collective Supremacy-class dreadnought emerge from hyperspace, its crystalline hull reflecting starlight like a small sun. At 18 kilometers long, it was the largest warship ever constructed by any known species. The collective had named it Eternal Dominion, believing it to be invincible. All ships, battle formations, she commanded from the bridge of her battlecruiser, the Audacious. Remember your training. Size isn't everything. Just ask any mosquito. Her squadron of 5 experimental battlecruisers moved into position, their hulls dark against the void. Each ship was barely a quarter the size of the alien dreadnought, but they carried humanity's latest innovations in naval warfare. Neural interface active, reported Lieutenant Jack Morrison, his eyes glazed as he connected with the ship's combat eye. Quantum prediction matrices are online. The spirit is ready to dance, Captain. The spirit was what the crew called their ship's combat intelligence, a fusion of human intuition and machine learning that had revolutionized space warfare. While other species relied on either pure AI or pure organic control, humanity had found a way to merge both. They're launching their first wave, Commander Diana Wells announced from Tactical. Over 300 fighter craft, plus support vessels. Energy readings from their main weapon are off the charts. Execute battle plan Mongoose, Carter ordered. Show them why humanity never builds a weapon we can't counter. The Audacious and her sister ships scattered in seemingly random patterns, their movements guided by both human instinct and machine precision. The collective fighters, programmed with perfect attack formations, found themselves unable to predict the chaotic yet purposeful maneuvers. Neural net is tracking their targeting patterns, Morrison reported. The spirit says their targeting AI is actually working against them. It's too perfect, too predictable. Carter smiled as she watched the battle unfold. The collective had built their massive dreadnought to be the ultimate expression of their military doctrine. Overwhelming force coupled with perfect precision. But they'd never considered that perfection itself could be a weakness. All ships, initiate sound and fury protocols, she commanded. Let's show them why humans still train to fight with our eyes closed. The battlecruiser squadron launched clouds of smart mines and electronic warfare drones, creating a battlefield that looked like chaos to the collective's sophisticated sensors. Their perfect formations began to break down as sensor ghosts and false targets multiplied. The Eternal Dominion is charging its main gun, Wells warned. Energy readings suggest it could vaporize a small moon. Exactly as predicted, Carter responded. Execute Operation David. The human ships scattered further, each taking position at precise angles around the massive dreadnought. The collective commanders, seeing the apparently random deployment, pressed their advantage. The Eternal Dominion's main weapon began to glow with gathered energy. Neural net confirms they've committed to the shot, Morrison called out. They think they have us zeroed. Now, Carter ordered. All ships, execute slingshot maneuver. In perfect synchronization, guided by both human and machine intelligence, the 5 battlecruisers fired their specially designed graviton beams. The beams weren't weapons. They were tools precisely calibrated to interact with the dreadnought's own massive energy discharge. The Eternal Dominion fired its planet killer weapon, but the graviton beams caught the energy, bending it along carefully calculated paths. The collective commanders watched in horror as their own massive energy discharge was redirected, curved around in a perfect arc, and struck their own vessel. Direct hit, Wells announced with satisfaction. Their own weapon just overwhelmed their shields. Multiple hull breaches detected. The bigger they are, Carter murmured, watching the mighty dreadnought's crystalline hull crack and splinter. All ships, commence attack pattern Delta. Target their secondary systems while they're still reeling. The human battlecruisers moved in. Their smaller size now a decisive advantage as they struck at the wounded giant from multiple angles. Every shot was guided by both human intuition and machine precision, striking at weak points that perfect algorithms would never have considered. "They're broadcasting in the clear," Morrison reported. They're asking how we could have predicted their weapons' energy patterns so perfectly. "Send them a message," Carter ordered, watching as the mighty dreadnought began to break apart. "Tell them that's what happens when you combine human creativity with machine precision. Some problems are too complex for either humans or AIs alone, but together, we can outthink any opponent." Dr. Marcus Reynolds studied the holographic display showing the captured collective admiral, noting how the crystalline being's internal light patterns shifted with each response. After 3 weeks of interviews, he was finally beginning to understand their psychology, and more importantly, why they had so drastically underestimated humanity. "You build everything wrong," Admiral Crystalline Song, a rough translation of their name, stated, their frustration evident in the flickering patterns beneath their transparent outer layer. "Your ships are inefficient. Your power systems waste energy. Your combat doctrine defies logic. And yet, you keep winning." Reynolds leaned forward in his chair, inside the specially designed interview chamber. "Perhaps you could elaborate on that last point. What makes our approach so illogical to you?" The Admiral's crystalline form pulsed with what Reynolds had learned to recognize as agitation. "Take your ship designs. We've analyzed the wreckage of several vessels we managed to disable. The power routing alone is madness. 3 separate systems doing the job of one, backup systems for the backup systems, redundant computers that seem to serve no purpose until the main systems fail. And this bothers you because," Reynolds prompted, knowing they were approaching a crucial insight. "Because it's inefficient." The Admiral burst out, their inner light flaring. "A properly designed ship should operate at peak performance, with each system optimized for its role. Your vessels waste tremendous resources preparing for failures that should never occur." Reynolds nodded, making notes on his datapad. "And yet, when those failures do occur, your ships keep fighting," the Admiral admitted, their tone carrying what Reynolds identified as reluctant admiration. "We destroyed 60% of the Thermopyla's hull, and it continued to operate at near full combat effectiveness. It's unnatural." "Tell me about your design philosophy," Reynolds suggested. "How do the collective's engineers approach shipbuilding?" The Admiral's patterns shifted to what Reynolds recognized as pride. "We build for perfection. Each system is optimized for maximum efficiency. Our power cores operate at 99.9% efficiency. Our weapons are precisely calibrated for maximum effect with minimum energy waste. And when something goes wrong," the Admiral's light dimmed slightly. "Things shouldn't go wrong. Our systems are perfect." Reynolds smiled gently. "But they do go wrong, don't they? Especially in combat." "Yes," the Admiral admitted. "Your weapons, they don't follow expected patterns. Your electronic warfare systems introduce chaos into our perfect algorithms. Your ships maneuver in ways our targeting computers consider suicidal. It's as if you expect everything to fail and plan accordingly." "We have a saying on Earth," Reynolds offered. "Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. We build our ships around that principle." The Admiral's patterns shifted rapidly. Surprise, understanding, and something like horror mixing together. "You intentionally design for failure. Your entire engineering philosophy is based on the assumption that everything will malfunction." We design for survival, Reynolds corrected. Humanity learned long ago that perfect systems fail perfectly. So we build redundant systems, backup power, distributed computing networks. Our ships aren't designed to operate at peak efficiency. They're designed to keep fighting no matter what happens. That's why your neural interfaces work so well, the Admiral realized, their inner light pulsing with revelation. Your AIs aren't trying to be perfect. They're designed to adapt, to work with human intuition rather than replace it. Reynolds nodded. We learned from our own history that the most dangerous situation isn't when things go wrong. It's when you assume things will always go right. Every human ship is built with the accumulated wisdom of countless failures, accidents, and hard-learned lessons. The Admiral's form seemed to sink in on itself. The collective has spent millennia pursuing perfection. Our ships are marvels of engineering, capable of operating at efficiency levels that should make your vessels obsolete. But in real combat, perfect systems break perfectly. Reynolds finished. While human ships bend but don't break. We've had nuclear reactors that continued operating after direct hits, computer systems that were routed through damaged sectors, weapons that fired even when half the ship was gone. Your entire species thinks like this. The Admiral asked, their tone suggesting they weren't sure whether to be impressed or terrified. We've had to, Reynolds explained. Humanity's history is a long lesson in learning from failure. Every disaster taught us to build stronger. Every accident showed us where we needed redundancy. Every defeat taught us how to survive. Fleet Admiral Rachel Winters stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching as the combined human fleets moved into position. The tactical display showed over 2,000 warships, their formations drawing upon every naval battle in human history, from Salamis to Midway. The collective had assembled their own armada for this final confrontation, their last attempt to prove their technological superiority. All fleet commanders report ready, Commander Jack Harrison announced from his communication station. The collective is broadcasting their final ultimatum. Let's hear it, Winters ordered, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. The alien commander's translated voice filled the bridge. Your persistence defies logic. We possess superior technology, superior numbers, and superior tactical doctrine. Surrender now, and we will show mercy. Winters allowed herself a small smile. Send our response. Come and take it. The Spartans said that at Thermopylae. Let's show them why that phrase has echoed through human history. The human fleet began its advance, but not in the rigid formations the collective expected. Instead, each battle group moved independently, following plans that combined historical naval tactics with space warfare innovations. Winters had studied every major naval engagement in human history, adapting ancient wisdom to modern warfare. They're launching their first wave, reported Captain Sarah Martinez from Tactical. 500 capital ships, supported by over 2,000 lighter vessels. Execute Operation Rising Thunder, Winters commanded. Show them what humanity learned from Admiral Yi Sun Sin about turning an enemy's strength against them. The human fleet suddenly split into smaller task forces, each operating with apparent independence, but actually following a carefully orchestrated plan. Just as the Korean admiral had used his enemy's rigid command structure against them centuries ago, Winters was about to demonstrate how humanity's greatest military lessons remained relevant even in the age of space warfare. The collective flagship is directing their forces to maintain formation, Harrison reported. They're still trying to fight according to their standard doctrine. And that's their weakness, Winters nodded. Send the signal to Admiral Chen's stealth group. Time to recreate the Battle of Trafalgar, with a few modern improvements. The battle unfolded like a deadly dance, where the collective expected direct confrontation. They found human ships attacking from impossible angles. When they adjusted their formations to counter one threat, 3 more appeared from unexpected vectors. Each human task force operated with both independence and coordination, their tactics drawn from thousands of years of warfare. Multiple collective ships breaking formation, Martinez announced with satisfaction. Their command and control structure is starting to fragment. Winters watched as the battle evolved exactly as planned. The collective's mighty armada, despite its technological superiority, was being systematically dismantled by tactics that had their roots in wooden ships and iron men. Collective flagship is attempting to coordinate a counterattack, Harrison reported. They're trying to adapt our own tactics against us. Too late, Winters replied. They're trying to learn in hours what humanity spent millennia perfecting. Execute Phase 2. Show them why we study history. The human fleet's movements suddenly shifted, incorporating elements from dozens of historical battles. The flexibility and adaptability that had kept humanity alive through countless wars proved devastating against the collective's rigid doctrine. Enemy fleet is beginning to retreat, Martins announced. Their formations are completely broken. Flagship is broadcasting a general withdrawal order. Send the message we prepared, Winters ordered. Let them know that humanity is willing to offer peace, but not submission. Hours later, as the debris of battle still cooled in the void, Winters stood before the combined admiralty of both species. The signing of the Terra Accords marked not just the end of the conflict, but the beginning of a new era in galactic military doctrine. We didn't win because our ships were stronger or our weapons more powerful, she explained to the assembled dignitaries. We won because every human vessel carried the accumulated wisdom of our entire military history. From the first time one human tribe fought another, to our latest space battles, we never stopped learning, never stopped adapting. The collective's supreme admiral, their crystalline form dimmed with humility, responded, We sought perfection in our military doctrine. You showed us that true strength lies in learning from imperfection, in building systems that expect failure but continue fighting anyway. Perhaps it is time for the collective to learn from humanity. Winters nodded, knowing that this moment would be remembered as the point where humanity's influence on galactic military doctrine truly began. Not through overwhelming force or superior technology, but through the eternal lessons written in the blood and victory of countless battles throughout human history.